guys, Brandon here, and behind me I have two Teslas. I have the Model S 2015 and I've got a 2018 Model X. Probably going to be shortly selling the Model S, so I wanted to do a comparison for those of you who are trying to kind of directly compare the differences between Teslas, maybe figure out which one would work best for you. So let's check it out. So let's start with a few obvious things. First of all is the height of the vehicles. You can see the Model S roofline is here, and then the Model X roofline is there. That translates to a little bit higher nose compared to the Model S. Of course, I have the 2015 nose cone, which will not be present in a new Model S. And also the headlights will be LED, similar to the X. They won't have the halogen bulb there. While we're in front, let's go ahead and compare the fronts. Let's open up here. Oh, good, no bodies. I don't know if I have anything here. By the way, the Model S is a much quieter class for whatever reason. Alright, so there's the Model S front in all its glory. And then comparatively, here's the Model X. So for the size of the X, it seems like it could definitely be bigger. So the back end here is 49 inches, and then the depth is 13.5 inches in the back, and then about 9 to 10 in the front. And it's about 18 inches deep. Well, it's kind of stupid to try that without a tripod, so now I got a tripod. Alright, so the X was 49 inches wide. This is 38.5 inches. I gotta check that. Yeah, the X is 49 inches wide. This is about 14 inches in the back and about 9 inches in the front, so it's smaller in pretty much all dimensions. You can see the washer fluid cap is inconveniently located there because it's difficult to pour a gallon of something in this direction versus on the X and on the new Model S's as well. Now it's a much more convenient location down here, very easily accessible. While we're on the outside, I do just want to mention the wheel sizes. These on the left are 19 inch and these on the right are 20 inch. You can get bigger wheels on the Model X than the Model S, which makes sense because it's a higher vehicle. Proportionally, they kind of look the same, so it's kind of only when you're up close or comparing them that you realize that the wheel sizes are bigger. This is also a good shot of the sideline. So on the Model S, you have the retractable handles. Model X, you have the flat line. It's not even a handle, it's something you push in, so I don't know what to call it, but there's that. The mirrors are pretty much the same, and then the top parts have a very similar, very aerodynamic tier shop shape, so that's too much different. Of course, the Model S has a conventional windshield, and the Model X windshield goes way the heck back here for that impressive display that we've all heard about. Again, in terms of the front, the Model X looks a little bit more bulky, and the Model S is much more sleek and comes to a nice point. That does translate to some increased efficiency. And I think that's about all I've got to say about the front. In terms of aesthetics, I feel like the sides are pretty similar. I do want to highlight the differences between the relative heights again, because that can be an issue for taller people. So if I hold this at the level of my face, you can see here's where the Model X tops out. So again, holding the camera at my eye level with my arm, again at the B pillar, you can see how much lower the Model S is. Now that does translate to some difference in riding posture, or seating position I should say. So let's go back to the X. So getting into the Model X. It's going to be kind of difficult to show this, but my legs are somewhat, they're not quite a right angle. There's not quite enough space to be up and down, but this is definitely much more of a SUV kind of, or truck stance. So you sit a little bit higher, you can sit a little more vertical, but still have tons of headroom up here. Now for the Model S, you definitely have to go down quite a bit more. So check out the angle of my legs here. You can see they're angled forward quite a bit more because the seat is so much lower, and I still have headroom here. I would have more if I had the sunroof, but it's a much more lower set vehicle. Obviously, it's a more sport kind of sedan thing. And I do want to spend a little bit of time highlighting the differences in the back, because I feel like the backs really give characters to these vehicles. The Model S just has a super sporty, athletic, confident stance, particularly from the back. The back, especially with the wheel wells here, is one of my favorite angles on the Model S. And then differently, the Model X. It's still athletic, it's bigger. If you compare the two, the Model X does look a little bit bulbous, more bloaty. But I think it's still a good looking vehicle. It's just not the amazing design piece that the Model S is. Latch, or whatever this is called, the trunk lid, opens higher than the Model S, so I'm 6 foot even, and I can stand under it. Maybe I should actually show you. There you go. So got room there. Okay, the opening width is about 41 inches. Inside, that actually narrows to about 40 and a half inches. So with the third seat down, you've got about 44 inches of floor space, and then on the back of the seat, that's about 40 inches. So and then it narrows to about 23 inches across here. So there is a significant drop off there. You also have this deep cargo space as well. It does go pretty far down there. So this, that's 17 and a half inches by 17 inches. It's about 42 there, and then 44 and a half there, so give or take. So in the low 40s there. I can't pull these seats up right now, the third row, but from the base of them, it's about 17 inches to the sill here. So a surprising amount of space back here. I do wish you could kind of split this vertically, so I have part of it up for stuff like this. Like a giant double stroller like we have. They cart around all the time. This you don't really want sunk down there. It's hard to lift up. You like to kind of scoot it out, but then you don't get to use the underneath stuff. So it would be kind of nice to split it and have deep space over here, and or like have a divider so that this could be upright but not move around the cabin. So some clever areas for future improvement. Unfortunately, I just loaded the Model S to go to the recycling center, so it's full of cardboard, but we can still get some measurements. Well, at its widest point, it's 42. If you account for these, which hold the cover, 39 and a half. And those are narrower than these pillars, so yeah, those narrow to about 39 there at their bases. Still pretty sizable. And then of course you've got the underneath area. Oh, let's see if I can get a measurement. 14 and a half deep. And slightly under 17 inches for the longitudinal. So yeah, still pretty spacious in there. So here's how this works with my head here. I can kind of lean under this one, but still doesn't go as high. That's important because this one will not graze your garage door, whereas the Model X one might. Okay, now let's check out the Falcon Wing doors. That's a big deal. so they do stop for you. Now they can be quite glitchy, not in the sense that they hit things, but sometimes they detect, at least ours detects obstacles that aren't actually there, and so it spazzes out and only comes out to here. Then you have to hold down the button for it to slowly go up, which actually I can show you. So if it faults to there, and then you're trying to get your kids out, but now you have to hold this up, and it slowly creeps up all the way to the top. It can make it really slower to get your kids or gear out. Meanwhile, your kids are screaming or something. But again, I'm 6 feet tall and sits here. People think like, oh, what's it going to do in the rain or whatever, because normal doors definitely cover you in the rain. So actually it's quite nice. Occasionally there is some drippage of water into the middle seat here. One of the disadvantages, but not that often. There has to be a lot of water there. And honestly, it's nice to have a canopy while the rain is going. In terms of snow, if there's too much snow on it, it might be a little too heavy and it will kind of fault out. You might have to cover it, or it might detect an obstacle. It might detect the snow as an obstacle on top. I actually did have that. It's actually probably not a weight problem. It's more like detecting an obstacle. This part should not have much snow on it because it's going to be vertical. So, but that top part might. And there is an ultrasonic on the other side of that, like right in the center of the roof, that detects objects above it. So there are some potentials for faulting in extremely heavy snow, but we haven't had too much of a problem with that specifically. So this is the famous second row of the Model S. We have two rear-facing car seats here. We've got a Maxi Cozy one and then a Britax on the left. So this is an infant car seat, which is narrower than a giant bulbous toddler seat. The base here is much narrower, but the arms here are 17 inches, and the Britax is about 18 inches. So in between those two, we are left with exactly 17 inches. Now, in terms of car seats, there are latch connectors down here, but only on the left and the right seats. They don't have them in the middle, so whatever car seat you have in the middle is going to have to be strapped down by a seat belt inside, which is okay, that still works, but it's not as convenient. And the latches are quite tight in there, so the seat cushion really goes around that latch, which that's fine if you've got like the hook and knob one, which I have here. Those ones are pretty easy to jam in there. But if you have just like it's not quite a carabiner, I'll show a picture of it. If you have one of those, they're easy to push in, but getting your finger in there to release it and then lift it up over the latch bar, it's difficult. So here's what I'm talking about here. It's kind of like an eye hook or something. So you can see how tight that space is going to be. It's kind of easy to push that in and latch it, but then getting it out, you've got to push this up, push it back, and then I actually have to, I twist it around to pull it up. And also, pro tip, if you put the seat back a little bit, which you do with this handle right here, at least on the manual ones, it opens this area up at least just a tiny bit and makes it just a tiny bit easier. So, but it's difficult. The other kind of latches are way easier. Britax has those ones. It can be a nightmare to get that thing in and out. Otherwise, it's a great car seat. A couple other things. So this is a mirror for rear-facing car seats. The weird thing about these, usually they'll strap pretty easily to the headrest here, but there's no gap in the Model X or Model S seat headrest. So usually there's like a strap that comes out here, so you've got one around and one that comes this way, and it straps really tight. So you kind of have to jerry-rig it. You can get them to stay on here, but it's just kind of more difficult to get them to stay where you want them to be. Quick comment on the white interior. I have a separate video where I actually pour straight fresh brewed or fresh pressed espresso right onto the white seat, and it just wipes right off. So they are extremely dirt resistant, except to blue jean dye. For some reason, blue jean dye will rub off on them. But in terms of like kid dirt, we've had dried food pouch on here, and it just kind of flicks right off or wipes right off. It's excellent in terms of that. Now I do have the seven-seater configuration, so that means we have a middle seat in there as opposed to the two capstan chairs. And so instead of having the motorized seat movements, they move with these things. I can't really move it up because the seat's right there, but I actually prefer the manual ones. And then this can recline these seats back. There's a button back here that folds this forward, but we don't really do much of that with the rear-facing car seats. Super nice to have this headspace, especially for somebody that's tall like me, because when you're putting a baby in rear here, it's so nice to have this open headspace, and instead of having to do it like this, you can basically just step up like this and put the kid in and strap it in. So it's so nice for having kids getting in and out, as long as the doors aren't giving you faults and stuff. Flipping around to the front now, I did want to highlight some stuff about using rear-facing car seats here. Rear-facing car seats come really close to the back of the front seat, and the thing about that is that, especially for the driver's side, I'm 6 feet even again, and with this car seat in the rear-facing condition, I actually can't back up my seat quite enough as would be comfortable for me as I normally would. It's okay, especially since the seat is higher than like the Model S, and so some of my leg length can be absorbed by the fact that I'm sitting higher, so my legs can go down farther. But it's not as long as like a I don't think there's as much space as like a minivan or something like that. In fact, let me seat back. So it's about 28.5 inches. Maybe close to 29 from that seat back to the back of that seat. So I don't know, compare that to a different vehicle or something if that's important. You can put the rear-facing seat here, and so you don't, if you're too tall or something, then you can have more room to back up that driver's seat. Sorry about the mess in here. This is an authentic video. I did want to show that in the Model X they do have a rear heating and ventilation system. So there's vents here as well as 2 USBs. There are cup holders right there by popular demand. There are also vents right here, and then for the third row, but right there, that is a vent for the third row, and that has a separate setting system on the front dash. Also, I forgot to mention, in terms of ventilation, I forgot about these vents. These are the footwell vents for the second row, and those actually have a substantial amount of air that comes out of them. Now, also underappreciated in the second row of the Model X is the amount of storage space you get here, which, sorry, it's so blocked here. Ugh. Got a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, so let me get a light on. So now you can kind of see there is storage space underneath each one of these, kind of like an airline, for small backpacks, little baskets, stuff like that. So that is underappreciated. Comparing that now with the Model S, you can see that there's the single vent back there. And by the way, it's like the heat from here is much colder than what the front vents, by like 20 degrees colder. I think in the front it can max out at like 120 or something degrees, and this would be like 100. I did a video on that, I'll have to check what the numbers are, but anyway. And I folded some cardboard back so we can see the seat here, and and then I just adjusted this to where I would be comfortable as a 6-foot person. And the distance actually from here to the comparable height in that seat is actually about 30 inches in the Model S. So it's difficult to compare those heights and stuff, because like if this seat angles back a little bit, but this area right here is closer to there, and also if this one angles quite a bit, like the car seat goes this way, so it really depends where this neck is and how far back the car seat can go. But anyway, I don't expect this vehicle to be too much more roomy than the Model X. And then in terms of sitting in the Model S, second row anyway, obviously there's going to be less headroom. So I have, I don't know if you can see, I have a little bit, and I would have more if I had the sunroof. There's actually a little bit more over here in the middle, but it's definitely not the same headroom as the Model X. And I can't actually, like, I can't lean back and have my head all the way up. I would have to slouch a little bit. Yeah, in fact, I can't even, so if I lean back against the headrest, I can't put my back flat against, or at least I can't put my butt flat against the back. I have to kind of scooch forward like this. I do have enough leg room here. Another thing to note is because the battery pack is underneath, that takes up some footwell space, and this is true in the Model X as well, but it takes up some footwell space, so your knees are going to be a little bit higher than maybe in a comparable gas vehicle sedan that has all its space taking stuff in the front and less on the bottom. So Model X avoids that a little bit in the second row, first of all because it's a higher vehicle, but also because you're sitting a little bit more upright and your seat's a little bit higher, so you don't have to scrunch forward. You can still sit upright, so it's much more comfortable. So again, I'm 6 feet, and it would not be too comfortable back here on any long distance trip, unless I was like slouching or something like that. So, and I also just want to highlight here, like if I have a rear facing car seat, I've got to contend with this. The car seat would be taking up space here, so I'm putting the kid in like this and then trying to tighten and buckle. Just the falcon wing doors open up so much space back here and right here, makes it so much easier to put your kids in and out. All right, I gotta roll this up. It's starting to rain. Meanwhile, the falcon wing door is protecting the space over there. Okay, now we're inside the Model X. In terms of like the dash and the console and stuff like that, there's not a huge difference. I think the console is now identical in both vehicles, so that's not going to be a big thing. They both have the same displays. The Model X did have an issue with some yellow banding around the edges due to like a glue that they used, which I didn't even notice until a YouTube viewer pointed it out to me. If you do have that and haven't gotten it fixed, if you switch to using night mode all the time, you can't see the banding nearly as much. But I did have the display recently fixed, and now I haven't been able to see any yellow banding. Maybe it will resurface, I don't know, who knows. But anyway, so like Model S to Model X, there's not much difference in terms of dash. Of course, there is a huge difference in terms of the what do they call this, panoramic windshield, or I can't remember the name of it, but this thing is just huge. It's angled quite far down, so you can see where the transition here is. Actually, when I first got this, it actually almost felt a little constricting, or like a smaller space almost, because it was like tint, 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 and then all the way down to here. But I do love it. I think it's awesome. I'm super scared of like having to ever replace it if it gets a crack in terms of cost, or making sure that like the cameras align and all that. Who knows? That could be a nightmare. But it is awesome. The as with a lot of vehicles, the A-pillars go quite down forward, and sometimes that's like right in your view of, like, if you're coming to a crosswalk, that's like right where you need to see a pedestrian, or at a four-way stop, that might be like right where your field of view is to see the other car, so you have to kind of look around that. If you've ever driven like a truck or something that has a very vertical, or my Jeep used to have a very vertical windshield, and it's so easy to see everything forward because the A-pillar doesn't project forward and get in the way of your field of view. But you can work around it, and ultimately, like, once this thing drives itself safer than I can, then it's not going to be a big deal because the cameras will see everything. Okay, these are the what do you call these, sun visors, so that you can barely see them when they're stowed away, which is cool. And they do flip down like this. Oh, there is a mirror there on it. Don't need that for now. This is like a magnetic kind of flap like you'd get on an iPad case or something. So this works quite well. You can twist it up this way, you can twist it down that way, you can have it down super far, you can adjust it anywhere in between along this radius. There's a couple areas here where you won't get coverage, but just wear a hat. Haven't found it to be an issue really. And then it slides right out of the way and you don't even notice it, so that's really awesome. So that's something that the Model X has that the Model S doesn't. Quite a bit of real estate back there, but not much to say about that. The your vision is pretty narrow there out the rear window, so basically, I mean, you can see stuff back there. Let me switch to the rear view mirror, see if you can, yeah, there you go. So you can see back there, you know, as you're driving along. But if you're actually doing any backing up, you're definitely going to be relying on the backup camera. So basically the difference is with the Model X in terms of the front space is the seat posture. You're more upright. Your legs can go at a right angle instead of going forward quite so much. I have noticed, I'll try to show you this, because of that shape, it kind of does something weird with the, look at my foot down there. So I've always felt like, so on the gas, the angle of my foot is very acute here. Like, my foot would be much more comfortable like this, but the pedal is like so far back or so far up, or because I'm so close, I'm not sure what it is, but my foot has to be angled so far back to use this. Again, that will disappear as autopilot becomes able to do everything, but I wish it was a little bit closer to the floor here, so I don't have to pull my foot so back. And I don't notice this in the Model S. I don't know, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what's different, or maybe they use the same pedal angles with these seats, or maybe it's because I'm scooted too forward because I've got the car seat behind me. I don't know what the issue is, but that's one thing that I've noticed on longer trips. Oops, I'm not gunning it. Obviously, if you have your the pedal to the metal, then you don't have to worry about having your foot backed up so much. Yeah, so I think that's as much as I have to say about the model. Oh, there are some differences in the door. So there's a lot more storage in the Model X. So you've got like umbrella area, like water bottle area, in addition to whatever this space is for. Oh, it's even got a little light in there. Cigarettes maybe? And then you've got these two cup holders, and then there's those two cup holders, and I think there's some in the third row too, but I forget. We never use the third row that much. But anyway, that is one difference, is that you have door storage. Okay, now we're in the Model S with the view as such. Actually, it goes pretty far down. It actually goes far down enough that when I am the first at a stoplight, at least the lights here in Michigan, sometimes I can't see the stoplight, so I have to like look underneath like that. So otherwise, I mean, the interior is essentially the same. Obviously it's black, because that's what I have here. Yeah, my foot's at a much more comfortable angle here. Way more comfortable actually for the pedal. I wonder if that's adjustable. I'll have to find out. Anyway. But overall, it's definitely a more horizontal stance. I can feel I'm sitting lower. I can feel my legs are going farther. It's kind of a more badass approach. And in my particular 2015 one, I don't have any console here, which I actually really like. I like not having anything there. And it gets cluttered up with junk sometimes, but I try to minimize that. And then with the seats down, with the seats up, it has the same obstruction as the Model X does in terms of rear view, mirror viewability. But you can see okay still, just like the Model X. And then, but for any, you know, backing up around objects, you'll be using the rear view camera. So here's the door. Compare that to the Model S. It does have the handle storage up here, although I don't have a light in there. They might now have lights on all of them, I don't know. I do have that's accent lighting, but there's no storage here. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they needed the space, who knows. Maybe it's different now. One last thing I wanted to mention is that I measured the door-to-door width in the second row of the Model S and the Model X. So the Model S is 54 inches, like the inside space between the two doors and the middle space. So basically like door handle to door handle. And then the Model X, that's slightly bigger at 55 and a half inches, not a whole lot different. They're basically similar width vehicles. The Model X is slightly longer and obviously taller, but so I wanted to see if you're thinking about like fitting car seats in there, it would be a little bit tighter in the Model S in terms of like fitting 3 there. So yeah, I hope that was helpful if you're deciding on which Model S or which Tesla to get. So these are the two biggest Teslas. Obviously the smaller version of a sedan would be the Model 3. A smaller version of the SUV would be the Model Y, which is not out yet. And then the Tesla pickup is coming as well, which is going to seat 6 and probably be bigger than the Model S. So we'll see what that looks like. We have no idea yet, but that'll be an interesting development. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. The Model S is kind of a flagship vehicle. It's a sporty, really good looking, really good feeling, really good driving vehicle. It's low to the ground, but you know, it's very easy to get into and like a blast to drive. It's also a little bit more efficient and also energy efficient and a little cheaper than the Model X. But essentially, if you have space limitations, your choice is going to be the Model X. The Model X, or the Model S, has a 3-seater second row, which is a little bit cramped, and at least you used to be able to get the 2 jump seats in the back. I'm actually not sure if you can do that anymore. So it's either 5 or 5 plus 2 kids. The Model S can fit up to 7 adults, maybe small adults in the third row. The third row only has 2 seats, by the way. But if you have like rear-facing car seats, hands down the Model X with the Falcon wing doors is going to be a lot easier if you don't mind dealing with you know, the occasional fault with those things and having to manually open them or make them close, which I personally don't mind. But essentially, yeah, the Model X is going to be about space. If you want maximum people space, maximum cargo space, headroom if you're a taller person. Also, if you have physical limitations where you need to kind of get into a vehicle more horizontally instead of plopping down into a sedan, Model X is a little bit higher, makes it a little bit easier to get into. Maybe you have back or knee issues. And you'll also be riding a little bit more vertically. So you want the fastest Tesla that is available. Not this one, this is 2018, but the fastest available is a Model S. Model X is available with the same technology, but it won't be quite as fast just because it's not as aerodynamic, it's not as efficient, and it's a little bit heavier. So yeah, hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to add them down below. And if you feel this video has been helpful, feel free to share. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add. No, I don't think there's anything else I need to cover. So with that, I will say goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.